Welcome back to my channel. So I think I had started trying to tell you a story about when Jill was born, but then I got sidetracked talking about Itsy Bitsy. So anyway, I was saying that I had left off with my storytelling during my marriage to John about the time I think I had told y'all that I had conceived Jill when we were on vacation in Destin, Florida. So now I'm going to tell you about her birth. Um, During the 9 months that I was pregnant with Jill, John had gotten fired from the job at the P&W Industries, the scrap metal yard where he had been working, because of his drinking. So he got fired. So the whole 9 months that I was pregnant with Jill, he did not work. We didn't have any income from him, and of course we had no medical insurance. So that was the time of my life that I did the babysitting. And back then, I only charged $10 a day, which was the going rate. So here I am pregnant and keeping, 3 or 4, sometimes 5 kids a day. I know one girl, she had 3 children of her own, and I kept all 3 of her kids. Now, 2 of them were in school, so I only had them, after school. She would put them on the bus in the mornings and go to work, so I had them after school. And then I had a little girl named Lacey. Her mother and father were members of our Sunday school class there at the First Baptist Church in Covington. So I had met her through there. So I kept little Lacey, and then I had a couple more children. I think I had one other baby. So I was pretty busy, and some days I would make, just depending on how many children I kept and if they were after school or full time. But usually I would make about $30 a day, so average about $150 a week. And our mortgage was not that expensive. We bought the home, and I think it was in about 1975, and our mortgage payment was $233 a month. And so we were able, or I was able to keep up the mortgage payments and buy food, and we managed some way or another. I don't know how. But Jill was due in March, and John kept saying, "You're going to have her on February the 26th." And I said, "No, you don't know what you're talking about." But he was guesstimating it because Jason was born February the 10th and Jeremy on February the 18th. So he just planted it in my brain that Jill was going to be born 8 days after Jeremy's birthday. So sure enough, I went into labor early that morning on February the 26th, and she was born that day. I have the card from the hospital. Okay, so I must have gone. Oh, I remember. I went into labor in the middle of the night, and she was born at 5:24 a.m. She weighed 6 pounds and 12 ounces. She was my biggest baby. Jason was 5 pounds and 14 ounces, and Jeremy was 6 pounds and 6 ounces, and then Jill weighed 6 pounds and 12 ounces. So here's the card from her. That was on her little bassinet in the nursery. But I remember I went into labor about 2 o'clock in the morning. And so Lacey, the little girl that I had been babysitting, her father had offered to come and stay with Jason and Jeremy, whenever I went into labor. So we called him, and he came over immediately. They lived in a subdivision right next to where we were living in Covington. And so he came, and then John drove me to the hospital. And by the time we got there, I didn't even go into the labor room. I had to go right into delivery because I was 10 centimeters. I thought she was going to be born on that bridge, y'all, crossing the Tchefuncte River on the way to St. Tammany Parish Hospital. Oh, Lord, that was a close call, let me tell you. So anyway, she was born, and then John, he just disappeared. He did the same thing with Jason and Jeremy. He would be there at the hospital through my labor and everything, and then he would just disappear. Well, he was at the bar using the birth of the baby as an excuse to drink and hand out cigars. Well, back then they kept us in the hospital for 3 days. So he came back on the third day, just drunk as a skunk, ready to drive me and the baby home. Well, there was no way I was going to let a drunk drive me and my new baby home. So I put his butt in the passenger seat, and I drove myself and the baby home. I swear, when you have an alcohol addiction that bad, there's really no hope for you unless you get into AA and really work the program. But here's a picture of baby Jill. She was 5 days old there. It's going to be blurry, y'all, because the picture itself is blurry. And here's little Jeremy watching over his new baby sister. He was her caregiver and protector up until he died. She was 16 when Jeremy got killed. So he always took good care of her. And here's a picture of Jason and John and baby Jill. They were sitting on the bank there alongside the Lake Pontchartrain in Mandeville, Louisiana. There on the North Shore. It's called the North Shore. That's probably a cypress tree. I really can't make it out. And here's John holding Jill, and she's looking up at him. He got on those old thick eyeglasses. He was, I think he was born with bad eyesight, but his right eye was crossed. But his eye wasn't crossed when he was born, but he had a real high fever, I think, from roseola when he was a baby, and it affected his eyes and his eyesight. And here's a picture of me. This is in our yard there in Covington, Louisiana, and that's Jason and little Jeremy and the baby. Y'all, I was skin and bones. I breastfed Jill till she was 3 years old. Lord, it got to the point to where I couldn't even sit down. She would just come up and just, pull my top off and start breastfeeding. It finally got to the point to where I just didn't sit down during the day because I was trying to wean her, but she knew how to get to the milk and everything, and it was so hard trying to get her weaned because I waited too late. I should have weaned her when she was 7 or 8 months old. But I knew she was a baby because John had gotten a vasectomy, and we had not planned on having any more children. And so I just babied her, how you do with your baby. And here she is. I would dress her up every day in little dresses and put little headbands on her and everything. She didn't have a lick of hair. Oh, look at that little red, white, and blue dress with that little belt on it. Aw. She was so cute, and she still is beautiful. I love her so much. I don't know what I would do without my daughter and my son Jason, but there's just something about a daughter that a mother just seems to be closer to a daughter. I would probably be pretty much as close to Jason if we lived closer, but it just seems like a son tends to be close to his wife and not as close to his mother once he leaves the house and gets married. But anyway, when John came to pick us up that day, he had taken Jason and Jeremy to a neighbor's house, and her name was Miss Davis, and she was a caregiver. She had a couple of hospital beds in her home there, and she lived there on Slimmer Road, the same road that we lived on. So she had offered, to watch Jason and Jeremy for the couple of days that I was in the hospital. So here I am driving down Slimmer Road with the new baby, John holding the new baby and everything, and so we go to Miss Davis's house to pick up Jason and Jeremy, and Jason is outside in the ditch. So this was out in the country, y'all, so there wasn't any city sewer drainage. The sewage drained into the ditch, and then it would go through a culvert, and wherever it went, I don't even know. Of course, it was the sewer leakage from the septic tank, so it wasn't raw sewage. But she had Jason out there, y'all, in the sewer ditch pulling up weeds. Oh, that made me so mad. Oh, I was so mad at that old woman for doing that to him. And then Jason and Jeremy told these horror stories of how she treated them or mistreated them. She would cook dinner all during the night and then leave it sitting on the stove all day. And then they would eat it the next day. And she made this carrot and raisin salad. And they absolutely hated it. And Jason said that she would put, like the chicken in one place, and then the carrot and raisin salad in another, and then the beans and the potatoes, and that they had to eat it in that order. They had to eat all the chicken and then all the carrot and raisin salad, and then go around and eat each pile one at a time in order. So she really had some idiosyncrasies about her. But she would call me every day and just talk and talk and talk and talk. And, it wasn't a cell phone or any kind of remote phone. It was a phone attached to the wall in the kitchen. So I had things to do. I had Jason in school, and then Jeremy was 3 years old, and then I had that new baby I was trying to care for and breastfeed and doing all the laundry and everything. And I think I did have Pampers for Jill, although with Jason and Jeremy, they were in cloth diapers. But she would call me and just aggravate me. Well, one day she called, and Jill was hungry, and she was screaming and crying. Y'all, and she just yelled in my ear, "That baby is retarded!" Oh, she made me so mad. And I said, "You are a crazy old woman." And I said, "Don't you ever call me again." So I hung up on her, and I never heard of old Lady Davis again. But isn't that something, that a woman would just scream and yell in your ear and call your baby retarded? That's a shame to even use that type of word. Even back in the day when people used it on a pretty regular basis. I never did, and I don't now. I think it's a disgusting word to use. To me, it's like a curse word. So she, for her to call my daughter that, it really upset me, and I wanted nothing else to do with her. But anyway, this is just, I'm trying to get through the chronology of my life stories. And I just want y'all to know how much I appreciate you being patient with me. Of course, I had a few setbacks with the trifecta and trying to get back on track and everything, and helping my daughter when they went to doing the babysitting when they took their trip to Trinidad. So I'm just going to try to get back to my old storytelling. That's what made y'all love me in the first place, and that's what makes y'all just keep on coming back. So bye now.